Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about all the standalones, fantasy standalones, that I plan to pick up in 2022. If you haven't seen my general goals and plans of 2022 video, I will link that in the cards up above, as well as my TBR for series in 2022. But there I do talk about my goal, or one of my goals, which is to prioritize the books that I already have on my shelves. And I took all of the standalones from my shelves. I have a total of 13. So I was a little bit surprised that I only have 13 unread standalones. That does mean that most of my physical TBR is part of a series, first of a series, second of a series, something like that. But all of these 13 standalones I do plan to read in 2022. Let me know if you want to buddy read any of these with me. As I said in my last video, I'm always open for buddy reads, so definitely let me know in the comments down below. But without further ado, let's get into the list. And the first one is, of course, a book by one of my favorite authors, and that is Heart's Blood by Juliette Merlier. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. If you know Juliette Merlier, this is going to be historical fantasy, probably set somewhere in medieval England, and there's going to be a very good romance. I love retellings, I love Juliette Merlier's writing style, I love her romances. I know that I'm going to like this book. And I do have it on audiobook, so if I like the audiobook version, that's how I'm going to read it. Then next up, a standalone that I tried as an audiobook a while ago, but I didn't like the narrator, so I didn't really continue. So this is one that I will definitely pick up physically, and that is The Black Swan by Mercedes Lackey. I love this cover, it screams fantasy. I also think that this is an older book, which is again one of my goals for 2022. Mercedes Lackey is an author that I wanted to try for a long time. She has a very long series, the Valdemar series, I think. But before I start with a very long series of her, I first want to dip my toes into one of her standalones to see if I like her writing style. I think that this is a retelling of The Swan Lake. If anything, we follow the daughter of an evil wizard who turns all of these beautiful ladies into swans. It's a retelling, it's very fairy tale-esque. I think that I will like it if I like Mercedes Lackey's writing style, which is something that I'm not quite sure of. Then another fairy tale, but this is an original fairy tale. It's not all fairy tales, I promise. This is just how they laid out here next to me. And this is Alphabet of Thorn by Patricia A. McKillop. So Patricia A. McKillop is somebody who writes original fairy tales. I read her The Forgotten Beasts of Eld last year, which was a very short fairy tale with a lot of animal companions. I really enjoyed it for what it was. So for this one, my hopes are pretty high. It's under 300 pages. It's going to be another very fast fairy tale that I can read over the weekend, and that will probably be perfect to read in spring. So we will see if I like this. I know that she's written a ton. So if The Forgotten Beasts of Eld is yay, and then this one is yay, I will definitely pick up more by this author. Then next up, I have one that I'm not quite sure about if this is historical fiction or fantasy, but with a title like The Familiars, I do think that it's going to be fantasy. This is a Sunday Times bestseller. I've never heard of it, so I do think that the fantasy booktube community has not given this book a try yet, but this one takes place in 17th century Lancashire, and we follow a 17-year-old who is married and she is now pregnant for the 4th time. However, all of her babies died. And then she meets a midwife who says she can guarantee that she can help her get a healthy baby. Then a couple of months later, she is being accused of witchcraft. So maybe this is going to be one where you don't really know if it's fantasy, where it's being left open if it's witchcraft or not. If anything, I like historical fiction and I want to read more, so if it turns out to be just an historical fiction book, that's fine. But I do think that there's going to be a little bit of magic involved, especially with a cover like this. A lot of people have told me that this is a Jolene cover, and I completely agree. Then next up, I have another retelling, but it's definitely quite different from the other ones, and that is The Once and Future King by T.H. White. So this is, of course, the OG of the Arthurian legend retellings. I've heard from Amy over at my Discord, hi Amy, that this is a great book, but that it can be a little bit dense. I've seen that this book is divided into 4 books, so I actually don't know if this is a series with very short books or if this is just one book. It's under 900 pages, so I am going to treat it as a standalone. I actually have an Arthurian Legend series on my 2022 TBR as well, the Mary Stuart series. So I don't know with which one I will start, but I do hope that I like them so that I can pick up more Arthurian Legend retellings, because I am quite intrigued by the original story. Next up, I have a book that I don't know too much about, and that is The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. I know that this one has a sequel. It's more like a companion. This can definitely be read as a standalone from what I've heard. But in this one, you follow somebody, I think he's a little bit a goblin, I suppose, And he was nowhere in line of the throne. He was maybe 19th in line. But then everybody before him dies. And now he is the emperor. And he needs to make his way through all of this political intrigue. I love political intrigue, so I do hope that this is good. I've heard some mixed reviews about it. People either absolutely loving it or hating it. So we'll see where I stand, I suppose. It's just a standalone. So with a standalone, I'm more easily convinced to just give it a try in comparison to series that take a lot more investment out of you. And then we have one that was on my 2021 TBR list, and I just didn't get to it. But this is an author that is very high on my to-try list because a lot of my booktube friends absolutely love him. And that is A Brightness Long Ago by Guy Gabriel Kay. Actually, this book by him was never recommended to me, but this is the one that I have, and it's a standalone, so I'm going to give it a try. I do know that this takes place in a Venetian setting, and I recently read Mask of Mirrors, which takes place in a Venetian setting, and I absolutely loved it. So I do know that at the very least, I will probably like the setting and the culture in which this story takes place. But what the story is actually about, I don't know. We follow multiple characters. I think that there is some political intrigue, but that's all I know. I just know that I want to give Guy Gabriel Kay a try. Next, I have another Arthurian legend retelling, and that is Lancelot by Giles Christian. This is going to be, of course, a little bit more of a loose retelling compared to the ones in Future King, and it is based upon Lancelot's life, I suppose. I actually did try this one a while ago, and I came up until page 26, but I had a lot of other reading commitments, so I couldn't really continue. But what I have read up until that point, I absolutely loved. It's very poetical. This is definitely a slower read, so I do need to remember that when I schedule it into any given month, that I need to take my time with this in order to really appreciate it. This does have a companion novel, Camelot, so if I like Lancelot, I will definitely pick up Camelot next. Now after this one, I do have a book that I actually tried in 2020. I got until page 60. I didn't really like it that much at the time. I was also in the middle of a lot of other books, so I DNF'd it at that point. But I always said that I wanted to return to this one, so that's what I'm doing now, especially because I only have 13 standalones on my TBR. I do have the time to give this one a chance, but if I don't like it the second time around, it's going. And that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is humongous. I do think that it's not as big as it looks. It is 800 plus pages, so yes, it's big, but not as big as this book makes it out to be. Even though I read 60 pages, I don't really remember what it's about. I do know that you follow different cultures, and in some cultures they treat dragons as gods, and a few chosen ones are dragon riders, I think. But in the other culture, they treat dragons as if they are, serpents basically, and they hunt these dragons. So, and then you have political intrigue, and you have a spy. You have a lot of things. I never really had the chance to get into it, I feel. Maybe I just wasn't far enough into the story. I've heard mixed reviews. Some people absolutely love it and are telling me that I need to give it more time. Other people tell me that it doesn't get better, that it didn't really need 800 pages to convey the story, that it has pacing issues. So I'm definitely on the fence whether or not I want to continue, but I just want to give it a try, especially because that cover is so beautiful. Then, after that tome, I actually have a very short book, one that I wanted to read in novellas in November, didn't have the chance to do that, and that is They Mostly Come Out at Night by Benedict Patrick. So this is a Yarns World novel. It's super thin, it's like 200 pages, 180 pages, and this one it's fantasy, but it also has some horror elements, it almost seems, because you have this small village, and I think that monsters come out at night, and we are following somebody who at night, he also has some very strange dreams where he is somebody else and he lives in a different world. He is some sort of a prince. It sounds super interesting, and it also sounds like it's pretty packed for a very short book. So we'll see. I love the cover, that's why I picked it up, and I think that a booktuber also read this one. I don't know who anymore, or at least a Yarns World novel. I don't know if it's this one's per se, but that she absolutely loved it. So I want to give it a try, and definitely soon. Even though it might be perfect for October, we'll see when I am able to fit it in. And then the last three, I lost count there for a minute. The last three books, these are standalones, but they are part of a bigger series, and that is, of course, the first Law Standalones. I think that we have to start with Best Served Cold, which is, how is it called? Western, a little bit Western inspired. Then we have Red red country. Is this one Western inspired? One of them is Western inspired, maybe all of them. And then we also have the heroes. Okay, so 3 of these, yes. We are going to have a read-along together with Steve over at Steve Talks About Books and Stuff to read these 3 standalone novellas starting in January. We also did a read-along for the original First Law trilogy. We had a lot of fun discussing these books, so definitely if you want to join us for this, I suppose it's a little bit of a trilogy of standalones, no? Then definitely join us. I am looking forward to it. I've heard great things of the second trilogy in this First Law universe, but to get to that second one, we first need to read the standalones. So I do hope that they're good. I'm usually not the biggest fan of Westerns, so we will see how I like that one. I've also heard that some of them don't really have a story, but one of them at least is one big battle and that's it. I'm a little bit hesitant for that one, but I do love Joe Abercrombie's writing style. I do love his characters, so I suppose that I will have a great time, even with standalones where I don't really like the plot. So those are all of the standalones that I have on the list. Please let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts are. Or like I said, if you are interested in them and if you want to have a buddy read with me, also let me know in the comments down below. I would love to. As always, I hope that you enjoyed the video and see you next time. Bye!